This is KUTV Primetime News with Irene Mwangi.
Alright, thank you for staying tuned to KUTV News at 9. As we promised, it is time for our discussion tonight, talking about the plea and the push for the reopening of places of worship. Joining us tonight is Bishop Hudson Danda, who is the National Chairman of the Church and Clergy Association of Kenya. Many thanks indeed, Bishop, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, now we start off from the point of the places of worship have been closed for 2 times now, and people have been crying that the churches and the talk on the closure of the places of worship has not been really vibrant, and nobody has been talking about the clamor to reopen places of worship at this particular time when Kenyans are seeking for hope and looking into help during this time of crisis. Perhaps what could you say has attributed to this particular situation here in the country?
Thank you so much, Irene, for having me on KUTV today. It is unfortunate that the church is going through what we're going through in Kenya. It beats logic if you ask yourself, between a Nissan Matatu, a very small vehicle running on the road from morning to evening, carrying around 300 people maybe in a day, between the Nissan Matatu and the churches we have, who has enough space to do social distancing? That is how bad it is. Because if it was me, then I wouldn't even allow people to get into matatus. Churches have bigger spaces. Some churches have spaces whereby you can park even 40 Nissan Matatus inside. I think the advisors of the government are getting it wrong. The first time we understood it, and we had to take it, because we are also human beings and we have life that we care. But then, let's ask ourselves, this second lockdown, how did we find ourselves there? The politicians should not run away from this blame. They are the ones who have brought us to where we are. The country was healing, the cases were coming down, but the politicians ignored the presidential order that banned the political gatherings. We have all seen huge meetings that the politicians have been having, no mask, people are so many, they're shaking hands, they're hugging. We believe that is where it began, the problem began to bring us to where we are right now.
All right. Now, talking about the president having not really open advices, we're having the Interfaith Council led by Archbishop Anthony Muheria. Perhaps, have you tried to raise the same complaints with the Interfaith Council, since it is the representative of the church to the head of state and to the government that is making this decision to close the places of worship?
Yes, the Interfaith Council, it is our people, the people we know, they are our friends. We have raised these issues several times. But we know, even as much that they have been given this space by the government, they must be working under limitations. They are not free to execute their mandate. Because if it was the Interfaith Council that is making these decisions, they understand best the spaces we have. They understand that the clergy care, we are not reckless. We understand we are not underrating the seriousness of COVID-19. So we have been raising these issues, and it is unfortunate, like on 27th, the president talked on Friday, 26th, and on 27th, the Interfaith released a circular that we do a recording service with the support staff that is not more than 15 people. But then, as we have always known, when the government issues a notice, you listen keenly to the government, what it's saying, but you pay special attention to what the police hear, because they always hear something different. Yeah.
All right. Now, talking about that, we noticed the skirmishes that were witnessed at JCC in Ongatarongai with police getting into the church and raising some sort of commotion that was witnessed there. Perhaps what is bringing this bad blood between the clergy and the police, given that some of the churches have complained of harassment? What is not happening on the ground concerning this particular situation?
There is no bad blood between the police and the church, but we have elements. We have a few policemen who you don't know. As I said, they always hear something different from what the government has said. So whatever they are implementing is not exactly what the government said. The ongatarongai thing was very unfortunate at the JCC church. I was there yesterday, and the pastor had only 12 people. Right. We want the police to understand and know that they have no mandate on the altar. It was even very wrong for them to get to the altar and eject the pastor and take over the altar. When we go to police stations, have they ever seen us go to restricted places? Police should handle pastors with dignity and respect. In fact, we are demanding the same way police summon honorable members, the politicians. They are not supposed to arrest pastors. Pastors are common figures in the society, respected figures in the society. Just summon a pastor to the police station, and the pastor will avail himself. And if he doesn't come, which we know he cannot miss to come, we are ready to present any pastor that has been summoned. And therefore, we are not happy by what happened at Rongai JCC. We condemn it in the strongest terms possible. However, we are glad we talked to the commissioner, county commissioner of Kajiado, and he was so remorseful of what happened. And also we are so much grateful to the CS Matiangi. He has taken up the matter and is working on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Bishop Dende, through the Church and the Clergy Association of Kenya, we have heard you plea to the president to reopen the places of worship, saying that it will help in the fight against COVID-19. But the church is also a gathering. As you are banning political gathering, a church is also a gathering. So how will the church be able to help in the fight against COVID-19, since it is a gathering just like any other, even in politics?
Yeah, I agree. A church is a gathering. So is Kikomba. Kikomba is a gathering. So is Matatus that have been allowed to carry 60%. So is the people associating in the estates. We are serving the same people who go to Kikomba, that the same people we are serving. And in church, we have been observing social distance and all those protocols that are as guided by the CS Mutahi Kagwe. And the cases were coming down. We all need to agree from where I began. It is the politicians that have brought this country to where it is right now. And we ask them to apologize to Kenyans. They need to take responsibility that the ones who has caused COVID-19 cases to rise. When they opened the churches and we were praying, we have seen the cases coming down. The country was almost normalizing, were it not for the political meetings we have seen. So yes, a church is a gathering, but we are very observant. We can do social distance. In fact, there are some churches that can still do social distance, and Irene, they can still accommodate up to 500 people, even if they do 2-meter social distance. Some can even accommodate 1,000 people with social distance. So we are pleading to the government to make sense out of all this, because everybody is asking, if just tell us the logic. How did you arrive at it that you can allow a small matatu to run on the road and you don't allow church services to continue?
All right. Of course, that is a plea to President Uhuru Kenyatta to sort of revise some of the measures that have been put in place during this second lockdown. But when you look into the country, it is one of the most religious countries in Africa. And the church has been a pillar. It has helped the society in terms of cushioning some of these families through the welfare. But there has been the controversial issue that even in online services, the issue of tithe and offering has not been consistent. to the extent that the welfare kitty is running out of funds. Now, as the chairman of the Clergy and the Church and the Clergy Association of Kenya, has that been a concern that even with the online services, we have witnessed a dwindling of funds in some of these welfare kitties?
Thank you, Irene, for that good question. Indeed, the church plays a big role in the society. There are many schools owned by the church, and some of these children are sponsored. They're schooling free. We have homes that are run by the church. We have some children coming from needy families, sponsored by churches for their secondary schools and even university education. We have feeding programs that are run by churches. You can imagine now with the closure of churches, all those people are suffering. And in fact, it is very unfortunate that the government had to lock down 5 counties. We have job losses. There are people who have lost jobs, especially in the hotel industry, and in fact, even every sector has been affected. Now, there was no good plan in this lockdown. And if you ask us from the church side, we can say the government should really look into the projects they have and look at what is the priority and stop some projects so that they begin to cushion Kenyans that the churches has been cushioning. Because now we are unable to cushion those Kenyans. We are unable to do the feeding programs. We are unable to take care of the elderly in our homes. So they might see a church as a service, but there are so many things that the church handles that the government need to understand that those people who depend on church are also suffering.
Right.
They have always said that we are asking for the church to open because of tithe. I want to dismiss that myth. Because Irene, I can tell you, most of the pastors you see serving, these men and women of God resigned from big jobs, great jobs. Preaching is a calling.
Yeah.
There are other churches that cannot even take care of their pastor, but the pastor is still serving because it is a calling.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, talking about the issue of cushioning, you've mentioned it and tried to elaborate on it. But since we had the first case of coronavirus last year in March 13th, and the government has come up with different ways of cushioning different sectors in the country, from the business sector to the tourism sector. Have we seen the government really try to cushion the church in terms of the march that it's doing, even in this particular second lockdown? Have you received any type of funds from the government, given that at this time we're having the government get more funds from IMF in terms of COVID-19 impact and cushioning Kenyans? Have you been on the front line in terms of being given money to cushion the church? Yeah,
that is where the government gets it wrong completely. They have a church in this country is a forgotten case completely. We saw last year the government forming a committee and collecting a lot of money that they said they are going to cushion some Kenyans with. Unfortunately, as a church, we have not seen that money. And in fact, I can tell you here, these people who are going through these situations, most of them are our church members.
Right.
And we ask them and we wonder where this money is going to, because our members, none of them say they have benefited from it. So we are questioning that committee. Who are they helping? Who are they cushioning? Because we are the people with we are the people with the people on the ground. In my church, there is 0 person who has benefited from that.
Right.
So the government should learn to work with the church. The church is complementing what the government is doing. We are also saddened to see that the government cannot even consider Clergy as an essential service provider. They don't list us there. And we are speaking to the government. You need to consider the Clergy as essential service providers. For example, Irene, if our members die, who will go to bury them? And how will we reach there? They have allowed weddings to continue on. There are some weddings are taking place across the country. If I have somebody who is wedding in Mombasa and I'm in Nairobi, how will I reach there without a pass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, talking about that, we have seen some of the members of the church and the clergy come out to say that the second lockdown during this third wave of coronavirus has not been well planned, given that some of the Kenyans in these 5 infested counties have not been given money to cushion themselves. Political leaders also today in the 5 counties came out to lament on the same. Do you think there has been some sort of dictatorship in terms of some of these measures being put in place, even though health is a priority in terms when it comes to the issue of a pandemic in a country?
What I think is lack of good advisors to the government, because there is no way you can take away somebody's job. You know very well that their job has been taken away, their livelihood has been taken away without a proper plan to cushion them. So we are blaming this on government advisors. Even before they thought of a lockdown, they would have thought of how those people are going to live their life. These people are paying rent. These people have families to feed. The very people have dependents. When you see one person working, maybe he's taking care of 20 people. The government did not put that into consideration. It is not only these people who are in these counties that are suffering. For example, I'm locked here. My parents are in Western Kenya. I have brothers and cousins there who depend on me. So actually, when you affect this one person, you have affected a chain of people under this person. And we want the government to come up with speed. In fact, I want to give the government a free advice. I don't think BBI is important right now. Stop it. You can revisit it maybe after 4 years. Use that money to cushion Kenyans. What is more important, if you have BBI come 2022, and Kenyans have died of hunger, have died of disease, that is not a government that is prioritizing important things in this country. Yeah.
All right. Talking about the president not having good advices, do you think the church has lost its voice at this particular time? Because the church that we're seeing at this era of COVID-19 pandemic is not the church that we had in 1992 during the IPPJ. The church was quite vibrant. There was a respect to what the church was saying. But in this era of COVID-19 pandemic, the church has sort of been swallowed in the noise of politics. As a chairman of the Church and the Clergy Association of Kenya, do you think the church has totally lost its voice?
Irene, there is no way the church can lose his voice. You can only have ears that are ignoring the church. What we have people who have ignored the church completely. The church has been speaking. We have done enough press conferences. We've spoken to this government. You have attended many of our press conferences. We have talked so many things. We have advised the government. We have raised the voice. What we don't have is a listening ear. When you have a listening government, the people will prosper. For example, Irene, let me bring this. For 7 years, this government has stopped church registrations. We have been speaking every year. Does it mean they are not hearing? They are hearing, but they are ignoring the church. And all we know, any government that will ignore the voice of God, that government cannot prosper and it cannot have peace. And we pray that the people who are working in the government, it is time we honor God. We honor men of God. We honor the church. Every government, even in the days of the Bible, every king had a prophet speaking into their lives, telling them this is wrong, this is right. The government must listen to the church. We hear from God. Sometimes we don't just speak. We speak because we're hearing from God.
All right. Now, the reason why Bishop Danda is saying the church has lost its voice is because during this time of BBI politics and whatever is happening in the country, it seems like indeed BBI is not a priority, but the government and the politicians have continued to push for it. Normally, the church, since a majority of Kenyans, our country here in Kenya is quite a religious country. Therefore, a lot of people really attend church and listen to the voice of the church. Why are we not seeing the church give their recommendation not only to the government, but even to the congregants to tell them this is the way we should go, this is the path that we should follow? Why are we not seeing that being vibrant in the church?
We believe probably that is the very reason that the church, we feel like we are under attack.
Okay.
Because when you close church and you have some serious things going on in the country, you are actually trying to stop us from speaking to the congregation. Because indeed, if they come to church, we will give them a guide.
Yeah.
We will direct them. We will tell them what is right. So what is happening, I get back to what I said, that this government, not the entire government, but we feel there are few elements in the government that does not honor God, does not honor the church. There are some things you don't speak to win an argument.
All right.
You speak to be heard. So that one time we can say, as a church we spoke. As a church we advised the government, but they ignored our voice. We talked about the political rallies that were going on. We talked about them, and we said this is dangerous for the country. The results are very evident. And we want to urge the politicians, even if it will look like COVID is coming down, we don't want to see you in those political gatherings until the country is totally healed. And we are off the hook.
All right. Now, Bishop Ndanda, as we finalize in your parting shot, do you think even with the new normal of having online services, the relationship between the clergy and the laity, that is the congregants, has sort of deteriorated during this time of the pandemic, and maybe it might not be the same? Some have complained that even though we have online services, the sheep are lost due to this particular new normal of doing things. Do you think that is the case on the ground as you finalize?
No, we have not lost our grip on the members of the church. What the government has done and the people handling, especially, I'm talking about the people who are handling the COVID pandemic, they have succeeded in demonizing people against the church. They have succeeded in scaring people away from the church. We don't see them telling them, when you go to a Nissan Matatu, take care, there is no social distance there. We don't see them talking about that. But we always see them say, don't go to church. Don't go to church.
All right.
Yeah.
That is a weird scenario of way things are turning out. Perhaps as your parting shot in 1 minute, what can be your message to the clergy across the country as the chairman of the Church and Clergy Association of Kenya, and also to the church and Kenyans who have lost hope due to the coronavirus pandemic, especially this third wave that has been termed as a dangerous one?
To my fellow clergy in Kenya, soldier on. You have the calling of God upon your life. Keep on serving. We are out of season, and the Bible encourages us we serve in season and even out of season. To Kenyans, we know what Kenyans are going through right now. We know times are not good. We know we are in a very challenging time that we have never experienced before. There is God in heaven. He's watching over our lives. He will take care of us, and we will come out of this pandemic strong. We urge those who are handling, especially the announcement of the cases, to give Kenyans hope. Don't scare Kenyans. When you relay the information, give them hope. Let them know that this will come to pass. This too will come to pass. Lastly, allow me to ask the clergy to conduct services on Sundays, observe the maximum 15 people, observe social distance, and all other protocols are set by the government. We urge the police to keep off from the altars. If you are looking for a pastor, summon the pastor. If he has committed any wrong, he will face the charges. But what we saw in JCC ongatarongai should not happen again. Don't read from two scripts. We have one, that we have been allowed to do live streaming services with a support staff of 15 people and below. Please respect the church and respect the altar.
All right. Many thanks indeed, Bishop Denda, for giving us a perspective on what is happening in the church and the clergy's plea. All right, now we are taking a short break. You've heard it from Bishop Denda that will